The ability to regulate one's emotions during difficulty is one of the rarest and also most sought after leadership characteristics. I probably don't even really need to unpack that anymore, especially in today's environment. We live in a world that's just filled with inputs. There are so many things that are changing, a lot of pressures, especially for people who have decided to be in leadership roles. Technology is changing, industries are changing, the economic realities of the world, economic systems are changing, politics and societies are changing. So all of that is quite pressure filled. And so for those of you who have decided to be leaders, that puts a lot of pressure on you. People are looking to you to help set the tone and to also to create certainty. It's difficult to have and create and convey certainty when you yourself aren't necessarily certain, and also to be emotionally regulated enough to also convey to other people who can read emotions, right? Humans are mammals, bluntly speaking. We can read each other. We have the ability to pick up cues from other people. So as leaders, the extent to which you are emotionally engaged, calm, optimistic, hopeful, constructive, paying attention, alert, present, is also going to be how is it that you show up for others, and also how is it that you're modeling them showing up for the people that they have the ability to influence. This is something that probably cannot be underscored enough. I really do believe that we are at a stage of something ending, right? This world that we're living in, exactly the way that we're living in it right now, is not sustainable. I think we all understand that. There's just too much happening. It's a little too busy. It's a little too chaotic. It's a little overstimulating. We're feeling, right, the expression of this. We have a lot of just anxiety, and we have a lot of people who are just mentally and physically just burnt out. We have a lot of stress. There's a lot of turmoil and conflict. All of those things are absolutely real. And I am quite optimistic about this ending being the beginning of something quite amazing. And for those of us who have chosen to be leaders during this particular time, we have an amazing opportunity to help create that narrative, to help shape what that new tomorrow can and will be in a way that is better, that is kind and generous and equitable, and filled with all of the things that are going to be far more sustainable and incredibly human, right? And in order to get there, we're probably going to have to navigate some things that are going to be difficult. We're probably feeling some of that right now. And also the people who are looking to us for guidance and direction are feeling it too. So really thinking about what it is that allows you as a leader to be emotionally regulated is incredibly important. So here's a couple of things that I'd like to share as far as how to stay emotionally regulated, and or at least how to show up as a leader. So I myself am not always emotionally regulated. I am incredibly transparent about this point. 2025, I had the worst professional year of my life. It was very difficult for me to navigate an overlap of change that happened at the exact same time, surprising change that happened at the same time of my life, and one of them being menopause, just to add a very incredibly personal touch to that, right? All of us are humans, you too, as leaders, right? The kinds of things that are going to affect how you show up as a leader are going to come from all over the place. They may be related to your industry. They may be something really difficult that happens with your employees. They may be something about losing contracts. It may be something about your own health. It may be something that has to do with family members or obligations. All of those things are absolutely present in you as leaders. It's not that you are, living in a box. Your leadership is always going to be susceptible to all of the same things that the rest of us humans have to deal with. For me, during that year, I had an overstimulated experience where I just couldn't think my way out of what to do next. right? And as a leader, I remember thinking, this is it. I have officially hit my low point. It's very hard for me to be strategic, right? It's very hard for me to think about what it is that would be the optimal next step for myself and on behalf of other people when I am feeling this overwhelmed. What would have been ideal for me is if I would have been able to rebound quickly. For those of you who are in leadership roles, to the extent that you are able to, when you hit a really difficult point, understand it, feel it, acknowledge it, and rebound as quickly as possible is going to be the most important skill. Doing that without burning bridges, without emotionally vomiting on the people around you, without destroying relationships, and without destroying yourself is going to be the key. So nurturing in advance, knowing that of course there will be times that you will go through something difficult, that either they've happened and or they potentially will continue to happen. You are investing in yourself. Invest in solid practices. For me, I am a yogi, so I had already invested in a solid yoga practice. I meditate. I had reinvested in and kind of doubled down on my meditation practice. I went to the doctors and asked to get really specific and really focused help navigating some of my kind of hormonal changes that were happening at the time, which were incredibly real. But I also looked to friends to say, help me understand some of the changes and some of the things that I was navigating that were either personal and or professional. And for you as leaders, I invite you to also start planting those seeds for yourself so that you have a strong base of things that you can go to help you. For a lot of you, it will also be making sure that you have and maintain strong professional networks, colleagues that you can call on who will maintain your confidences and who will always act in your best interest. People who you can call and say, I need to talk through something. I do not need you to solve it. I do not need you to tell me that I'm right. I need to be able to describe it, and I need you to be able to help me navigate myself out of it, right? And I need to get out of it sooner rather than later, because the longer I'm stuck in it, the more self-harm it potentially does, right? And so having those things in place sooner rather than later is incredibly helpful. You don't need an expensive coach to play that role. Of course, you can get a coach. Of course, you can have all sorts of, paid subscriptions to things. But you can also just have trusted colleagues who you in advance say, this is the role that I'd ask you to play with me in anticipation, right? Start saying, let's meet once a month, let's meet once a quarter, and just proactively start building that discipline in so that when it is time for you to actually need to navigate your way out of something, you've already started building that muscle, and you know that you have the security and psychological safety to get through that quickly. The other thing that I'm going to invite you to do is to practice something that I'll call a pause button. And it's a silly little and simple little technique that I have advised people about for years and years and years and years. So early in my career, I was the director of a human rights office, and I spent a lot of time managing and mitigating complaints of discrimination. And one of the things that I found is a lot of times people would come to me with complaints of discrimination, and after investigating it, I would find that some of the experiences were not actually discrimination. They were just people who exploded. They were just, this person exploded on this person, right? That just tempers got out of control. And so the discrimination complaint itself didn't always hold up, but this person absolutely was a jerk. This person absolutely couldn't contain their own emotions. And also there was a power differential. If you have more power than another person, you have more responsibility, right? If you are a leader or a manager, you have more responsibility for managing your emotions, especially in the face of other people. So the way that you can potentially build in some of that ability to manage your emotion is by doing something that I call creating a little pause button for yourself. So here's how it works. I am in a conversation with another person. I am the manager. I say to another person, I need to talk to you about X. The other person gives me a response. We have a bit of a back and forth. And at that, midway through the conversation, I realize that the person is being kind of flippant about it, or they're being defensive. At that point, sometimes what happens, and this happens in many of the conversations and experiences people share with me, I shut down. The flippant response leaves me with, I don't know what to say, right? A flippant response is something like, okay, got it, I won't do it again. Or the defensive response is, yeah, that was just a one-off. I don't know why you're making such a big deal out of this. Right? Those kinds of responses often lead to the person on my side of the desk, right, saying, okay, maybe I am blowing it out of proportion, or I don't exactly know how to get to resolution. Okay, got it. My message was delivered. That is not a satisfying response. It is also not satisfying for me to get emotionally volatile. It's also not okay for me to say, how dare you get defensive? How dare you make this flippant? How dare you respond in that way? It is not okay for me to emotionally kind of get so out of control of my own emotions that it starts to have a negative impact on the experience. So what I should do in that situation is create a pause button. A pause button is where I stop talking and allow silence, even if it's awkward, which allows my brain to catch up with my emotions. So that while I am creating this pause button for my brain to catch up with my emotions, I am thinking to myself, what is a more satisfying outcome that I seek? And instead of thinking, what is it that I feel like saying at the time, instead, my brain analytically is able to skip over what do I feel like saying, because what I feel like saying should not come out of my mouth. And instead, my brain goes to, what is the satisfying outcome? What is the most appropriate and helpful outcome for this situation? And then what is the thing that I need to say or do in this moment to get to that outcome, right? And if I allow for that awkward pause, then my brain can kick in and override whatever it is that my feelings were going to allow to come out of my mouth. And then we can engage differently. And I can then say, you know what? The way that this conversation is going is not actually where it is that I hope we'd land. I am going to start over, and I'm going to ask us to go a little bit more deeply. What I'm hoping for is that we get to an outcome that allows us to both be on the same page about next steps, not just about this one time, but about next steps that we both are going to agree to, and that is going to be a much higher standard than we've had in the past and that we've landed on so far in this conversation. Right? And so you have the ability as a leader and as a manager to navigate your emotions by creating a little time in a conversation. A pause button, silence are absolutely your friend. The other thing is, and I already described this, is go into every conversation, especially one where you feel like there may be a bit of defensiveness or where you may feel a little bit emotionally anxious, with a clear understanding of the outcome that you seek. What is it that you want from this experience? And if what you want from this experience is to just slap the other person on the wrist, to just let the other person know how you feel, that is not a satisfying enough outcome for you to actually go into that meeting. And so I invite you to hold back and think about what are some of the other more productive and constructive things that are either in the service of the relationship and or of the other person that you can then start to articulate for yourself and also articulate for the other person that you can bring forward in that conversation before you open your mouth, right? So the point of this video is to really reinforce that as leaders, as managers, and I mean leaders, whether or not you're a formal leader or a person who is just helping others, because your leadership that is a person willing to show up on behalf of others and navigate some of the changes and some of the experiences that people need and want support through. that your responsibility in this time is to make sure that you are also paying attention to your own emotions, and that your emotions are serving you and not getting in your way, and that you have techniques for helping you manage and nurture your own emotions and the effective outcomes that you want from your relationships.